Today, I want to talk about why, as a man or a woman or a vegetable, you should not pursue sex. But I titled it as a man because, biologically speaking, it's probably most pertinent to a man. This is because your sex energy, your sex drive, is so much integrally tied to your vitality as a human being, your potential, your actualization, your drive, your creativity, your productivity, your vision, your ambition, your goals. Your entire force field, your life, is so vitally linked to the sex drive that in today's culture and society, especially in the West, and I'm in the US, so especially from American society, it's so casually regarded and dissipated and frankly abused that we don't fully appreciate and value the true quality, the true nature of this vital life essence. In Chinese, 精气神, your qi. In Hindu religion, your prana, your life force, is so tied into the sex drive. When you give it away, when you give away this vital force, whether through uncontrolled or too much sex or masturbation or uncontrolled sexual energy, then it is like you having this much life potential in a battery and you're just giving it away. You're zapping your life battery away and just depleting yourself. So how are you supposed to have any energy to pursue your other goals in life? Where does your creativity, your drive come from? When you are able to harness and control your energy, you rise above and are able to channel that energy into productive tasks. When you dissipate it away, then you are tied to your sensual desires and your sense pleasures. The more tied to sense pleasures you are, whether it be through sex, food, just physical comforts in life, the more you are enslaved to your senses. But we as humans, when you want to actualize yourself and achieve things in life, you learn how to master yourself and to harness your own senses so that they serve you. You're able to control your mind, you're able to control your senses, so you are the master of yourself and not the other way around. Because of our over-reliance on sex, our pursuit of sex, our craving for sex, and our indulgence in sex, we have become enslaved to the sex drive, enslaved to our sensual impulses and our lower desires in life. And as a human being and as a society, our whole life force is being dissipated. And you can tell, you can see this so strongly when you go to some countries that have not been so under the destructive influence of pornography and unrestrained, liberated sex. When you see the youth of that country or the men of that country, they have so much more virile power and potential. There's such a sense of masculinity that in the West, frankly, men have become emasculated by their own so-called liberation. When you have become so liberated that you don't control your sex drive, that you just let it go freely, then you actually become enslaved and emasculated. Why do people say more spineless or weaker, so to speak? Is because when you store and conserve the sexual energy, you retain that sexual energy, you retain the masculine power, you retain the vital force within you, and you're actually more virile. But when you dissipate it, you become essentially weaker. In a society, that is a huge problem. That is a huge problem because youth and men, if we don't have a backbone, then you are not going to be able to be in any way competitive with countries and nations that do, in fact, have a very strong, let's say, moral, ethical, and compass about the subject. Because let's just say starting, if you even see our president, reflected in our presidency, our leadership, and our entire populace, our culture, our musical tastes, artistic pursuits, and just various other facets, there's so much overindulgence and lack of control regarding the sexual impulse that, frankly, there's a corruption of the entire fiber of society. So that when youth say we go to school. We go to school and we don't go to school to learn. We go to school to, some people go to school and their primary focus is how am I going to lose my virginity? At least that seems to be a recurring theme in many popular young adult TV shows. How could that be the value for education? So much of it is about sex, about hooking up, about just, just doing these things when you're supposed to be in school. How are you supposed to be getting an education when the entire culture does not care that the youth is becoming addicted to pornography, when so many young people these days are using things like OnlyFans, and frankly underage women as girls selling themselves on OnlyFans? When this has become very commonplace, you have a whole degeneration, corruption of the culture. When this happens, how are you supposed to even compete or be a dominant power on this global stage? If you look at a country like China, who, to be honest, a lot of youth there also use pornography and also are very sexually loose, but as a whole, society has a very firm, consistent value and set of cultural values that frown upon wanton sexual behavior and overindulgence in things like pornography and sex. So when you have a cultural ethical guideline that is not about just complete liberated pursuit of the sexual drive, people are actually free to discipline themselves and cultivate themselves to become an actualized version of a human being that they're meant to be. Because as a human being, you have so much divine potential and power. You have a divine potential and power within you to accomplish almost anything that you want to do. But when you give in to lower sensual pleasures, you're dissipating so much life force that you find that you do not have any drive or power or even vision for yourself of what you could possibly be. And that is a problem. That is a problem. I am not saying that sex is bad and that there should be a repression or a taboo about sex, because sex is beautiful and sex is actually why I'm saying this is because sex is so important, so vital. It's hugely sacred creative power, but it's not being respected. It's not being seen as sacred and respected as what it should be. It's being abused. Frankly, when you see the sexual drive for what it is, you see the immense power of it for creating life. So when you're an artist and you create things, most of that comes from the sex drive. When you're able to use it, you're able to create things, you're able to create art, you're able to produce amazing things, invent things, write about new theories, write a book, accomplish a new venture, go out there and actually have initiative and drive and discipline in life. You have so much creative power. But when you loosen that energy, when you don't respect it, when you are tied down to these sensual pleasures and you just let your sex drive go, then you lose all of that force. You lose all of it, and you cannot harness it in a great way, and it will actually end up consuming you. What I see sex as is that it's not supposed to be, and like in some religious traditions, repressed and controlled and just completely stamped out, because I can't. Sex is like fire. It's like oxygen. It's creative, but it's also destructive. You use it wisely, you use it, it's like fire. It gives warmth, it gives life. If you just let it go, it will destroy you, it will consume you. So for me, for example, for myself, I have huge amounts of sexual energy. I channel that into my art, I channel that into God. So not to repress sex, but to transmute it, to elevate it, to transcend it, and to use it. But to learn to use it and to learn to see it for what it is. Because when you just so casually go about letting it go, just being addicted, enslaved to pornography, wanting to chase women, wanting to lose your virginity, or just to like have fun or mess around, F around, right? When you're effing around, you're really effing with yourself. You're really disrespecting yourself. If you want to be in a loving relationship with somebody, then by all means, enjoy your sexual relationship. By all means, right? It's But when you just take it so casually, like I've heard so many people try to say to me, oh, let's just have some fun, or like, no, but it's not. It's like eating a jelly donut or something chock full of sugar. And the moment it gives you a high, it gives you such a high, but it inevitably gives you a crash. It's just like eating the donut. It doesn't fulfill you. There's nothing about it that interests me that wants me to eat it long term because it's like, okay, I got a high, I got a rush. But what comes after? I know that crash is coming. I know it's sickening. I know it just makes me sick, right? It doesn't actually fill me. There's nothing nutritionally valuable about that jelly donut. I don't want it, right? If if the sugar is part of a nice, nutritious, hearty meal that fulfills me, that brings more love and joy, yes, I will love it. I'll have it. I'll have as much as I want. But when I just eat, when I stuff myself on jelly donuts, what do you think is going to happen to my body, to my mind, to my soul? When a society as a whole engorges itself on jelly donuts, what do you think happened to the society? And political philosophers throughout the ages have talked about this. Montesquieu, Hobbes, so many different philosophers, Machiavelli, have talked about what happens to democracy when it becomes enslaved to sensual pleasures, to wanton consumerism, to hedonism, to uncontrolled, unmoral liberation and freedom. Too much freedom will corrupt and eventually destroy that democracy. It will collapse. And that is what is happening in Western society. That is what is happening in American society. The decline of American power is so actually intrinsically tied to the corruption of its moral fabric, to the lack and disintegration of education, and the lack of actual proper moral values, and actual education of youth in today's schools. The uncontrolled and just undirected and very misguided direction and culture and corruption in general of people not valuing sex, not respecting sex, and just abusing it, frankly, abusing the sexual instinct, is invariably going to go hand in hand with the entire degeneration and decline of American power and society. And we have already seen it happen. And I don't think enough people are aware of it and are talking about it because look at the person we elected to be president, right? That shows you a problem and your ethical values as a society. That shows you a problem with your values and with, if this is our leadership, this is a reflection of our culture. And frankly, this is the seed. This is a seed of your demise and your collapse. Okay. I hope this is not too preachy or offensive. But for me, this is truth. This is truth. It's a divine force. Sex is divine, honestly. It is your God-given energy to create life, to reproduce, to create life. I see it so tied in with creation because I'm very creative. There's so much sex drive, so much creativity. But you don't see it for what it is. Then where does your light and your force and your energy come from? So as a human being, that's why I say, learn to see it for what it is. Learn to see yourself for what it is. Respect yourself. Learn to see your potential as a human being, as a divine human being, and your divine potential to achieve what you want to achieve. And yeah, when I see men going around it's just like I don't it's not my values, right? There's many men who try to impress me or try to tell me how many women they've been with, how many women, and if that's trying to impress me, they completely got the wrong idea because it's not hard these days. It's not hard at all to go out on these dating apps to hook up as a man or a woman. It's the easiest thing in the world. If you want a one night stand, if you want to hook up with somebody, if you want to just it's the easiest thing in the world. Pick up your phone. You could get laid, right? Or you just throw some cash. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's not hard to F around. It is so much harder. It is so much harder to realize your potential as a human being and to respect yourself and to respect the people around you. And to actually value the sexual power in a real way, to learn to control yourself in a real way. And I'm also very aware that for a lot of people, they can't control it. And that's not their, I mean, it's nobody's fault, right? I'm aware that a lot of this comes from trauma. When you see actual sex addicts, people who are addicted to either pornography or sex or prostitution or whatever it may be, they're addicts because it comes from trauma. One of the biggest factors, if not the biggest, that I have seen very personally is that it comes from sexual abuse. People who are sexually abused as children grow up to become sex addicts because they've never learned how to resolve that pain within themselves. So I see that with a lot of compassion, and yet they're destroying themselves, and they're also hurting people around them. So at a certain point, you have to learn to deal with it. But society is not helping. Let me just say, culture and society is not helping because it's indulging, it's fanning the flames. There's no one to say, okay, that's not good. Culture is all about, yeah, let's go and have more sex. Let's go and, like, this is a proof of my masculinity. This is a proof of my accomplishment. My sense of self-worth, my sense of relative self-worth as a man is so linked to how many women I've effed, if I'm a virgin or not. And that's completely the wrong metric, in my opinion, for how people should judge and evaluate themselves and other people. So when I see like these shows and TV and popular culture, so much emphasis on trying to lose your virginity in schools, trying to compete with men and saying how many women you've been with, your body count or whatever, and to use that as a bragging tool or as a tool to shame somebody, is just it just feels so wrong to me. And it's not trying to shame nobody as a woman or a man, but it's just so wrong to value people in this way, to value people or to evaluate yourself or other people based on something such like this, right? It's like, where's the value and where's the respect? Where's the sense of sacredness? Respecting somebody's sense of about their sexual life, about their sexual just entire needs, instead it just becomes something so casual to talk about, something so casual to indulge in. And, I'm actually not a super conservative, just tied up person. Like, you see how I talk and joke. And the things I actually, have experienced, it's not that I'm like being a nun preaching and being like, it's just that, but these are my values, and I guess I'm here to share it. So thank you. Okay, here are some more thoughts because I thought this was actually kind of important. So first, the video is titled a bit wrong because it's very natural to pursue sex. It's such a fundamental biological vital drive as a man and a woman, but especially as a man, right? Your sex drive, it's so fundamental. So, but I think I make it pretty clear throughout the video what I mean, which is there's one way to channel it in a healthy and productive way, and another to lose yourself in a dissipation of your life force, right? It's a very different kind of way you're dealing with it. Now, I forgot to say, instead of focusing our attention on pursuing sex as an ultimate objective, like obsessing over it, wanting to chase women all the time, losing yourself in the pursuit of women and indulgence of your sensual pleasures, whether in masturbation or pornography or indulgence on sex, whatever it may be. Okay, what should you pursue instead, or what might you pursue instead? See, that's a question you can't even begin to think about when your mind is so wrapped up and obsessed with sensual pleasure. When you're obsessed with your sensual desires, it's always about me. How do I fulfill myself? When is my next hit? Right? When is it going to come? I have this urge. I have this craving. I need food. I need this jelly donut. I really want it. When is it coming? I need it. It's about what I want. How do I get it? When you learn how to control that or harness it and use it to fulfill your goals, it becomes, what am I here on life to do? What is my purpose? How do I channel my energy into my purpose? How do I fulfill my mission, my value as a human being on this earth, to serve people, to serve the world, to serve myself in a larger way? Because everyone is born with certain talents. We're here to use ourselves in a way that's not just about, I want my next hit, I want to eat the jelly donut, but I am here with value and potential as a human being, And how do I use it? How do I serve society? How can I do something to help society, to help people, and to actualize myself? I have a talent for writing. How do I start writing? I have when I was little, I liked to tinker with things. How do I use that tinkering in a better way? I have a curiosity about bugs. How do I use my drive and my energy and my vitality and my interest in learning more about bugs and become the next Charles Darwin? When you read about inspirational people, read about stories about people who have served as such a beacon and light for many, whoever it may be, it uplifts you and gives you a sense of what you could become and how you could also serve in a similar way. People who have in my life inspired me: Malcolm X, Van Gogh, many revolutionaries, stories I read, people I'm inspired by, and it uplifts you. What was I going to say about this? When you look back into history and see the people that people honestly revere and value and hold up on a pedestal and worship to this day, it's not really about the conquistadors who had all the women in power and conquest in the world. People like Genghis Khan, dictators. Their names are largely wiped away or tossed aside and forgotten in the ceaseless tide of time. But the people we still worship and put on our altars today are people like Jesus, people like Buddha, great sages and saints, God, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., people who have come to shine a light and help humanity in a certain way. So when we put things into that perspective, it's not about how much I can indulge in, how much I can get for myself. More about how do I serve, how do I shine a light for people who may need me. And I'm not even aware of my own power because I'm so lost on myself right now. So, thank you. Okay, I have to have a little addendum because, I record these things and I always feel like maybe there's something left for me to say. So here was what I was going to comment on the video, right? Let me just say that I know many, many men and women who have told me things about their lives, who are very into free sex or the hookup culture or whatever it is. They've done many things. I've seen them do it, and I don't try to judge them. I listen, I don't judge them. And in my heart, I'm not trying to pass judgment on you and your life and trying to tell you you are bad for doing this. And I do not believe you are a lesser human being or that you're actually corrupt and bad and degenerate for doing any of this, because I've said it comes from trauma. I know that it comes from pain, suffering, and trauma. When I have behaved in the most uncontrolled, craziest ways, and frankly tied to my own sensual pleasures and desires in life, when I was in that stage of my life, or when I am in that state of mind, it is invariably because I am going through a lot of pain and I don't know another way of dealing with it. So that's why I do these things. But we have to be aware. I know for a fact, so I'm not here to blame you or say you're less than or try to make you feel bad about it. But I need you to be aware, or you want to be aware, because not being aware is not healthy. Not being aware leads to pain. Not being aware is why you're suffering. Okay? The way out of suffering is not more release and desire and pleasure, but now we're getting more spiritual. The way out of suffering is to find a way, like the Buddha, like all the religious masters have advocated, the way out of suffering, is to rise above our senses. So yes, they're hurting themselves. The culture as a whole, society as a whole is hurting. So Yeah, so as a young man, as a man, and especially as a young man, just be aware. Be aware of how much power the sex drive, the sex impulse has over your life, and learn how to use it wisely. And as a woman, and as a vegetable. Okay.